Welcome to the Generation Why Not podcast with Ruth Klein, a 6-time best-selling author, creative brand strategist, and book coach for small businesses, entrepreneurs, authors, mompreneurs, and professionals today. She is the president of the award-winning firm Expert Celebrity Branding, and the Wall Street Journal calls her the marketing maven. This podcast will be interviewing this generation, those who are doing things differently because of their perceptual shift of what success looks like, and who are driven by attitude, not age. They know anything is possible, and you'll hear how this generation feels the fear and keeps going anyway to achieve their goals and dreams, whether they be in business, sports, the arts, or lifestyle.
Welcome to Generation Why Not. I'm your host, Ruth Klein. Generation Why Notters, it seems that they share similar internal strategies, whether they're entrepreneurs, multi-million-dollar startups, executives, mompreneurs, creatives, or even professional athletes. And then why is that? Because this generation is driven by attitude, not age. And this is a very powerful and growing generation, and it's energized by inspiration, it's touched by creativity, and it's driven by a mindset that is on a focus and on a mission. Generation Why Not is a generation that is driving innovation and inclusion. And I also believe that Generation Why Not is driving the economy to new heights of invention and solving some of the biggest problems in business and in social change worldwide. And I like to say that Generation Why Notters integrate their brand prints into their conscious leadership DNA. And today, our guest is a Generation Why Notter who definitely integrates their brand print into their conscious leadership DNA. His name is Dr. Stephan Poulter, and he is a renowned Los Angeles-based clinical psychologist in private practice with over 30 years of experience. I'm so excited to be asking him all these questions. He brings a unique perspective to his practice and writings as a former law enforcement officer, seminary graduate, and ordained minister. Dr. Poulter has authored 7 books, such as The Shame Factor, The Father Factor, The Mother Factor, The X Factor, I call my ex-husband the X-Man, The Art of Successful Failure, and Father Your Son. His professional scope has always helped diagnose, treat, and understand the power of our relationship world. His newest book, The Shame Factor, which is excellent, is a culmination of over 20,000 hours of face-to-face clinical experience addressing the insidious nature of shame. Dr. Poulter works with a wide range of people, along with specializing in the father-son-daughter relationship. Please help me welcome Dr. Stephan Poulter. Hi, Stephan.
Hello, Ruth. That's quite an introduction. Thank you very much. It's very flattering.
Well, it's amazing what you have accomplished, and as my kids would say, your credibility just kind of oozes off the page.
I'm flattered. It's interesting, as a psychologist for the last almost 30 years, I feel like I've had different lives. As a psychologist, I find that what you're talking about, your generation, why not, is really about, I have found, going past glass ceilings that we have self-imposed, apart from what society does or our parents. And that's what led me to write my last book, most recent book, The Shame Factor, Heal Your Deepest Fears and Set Yourself Free. And how that malaise inside of us, Ruth, gets in the way of us making the impact we want to make and doing the things we want to do. And that's what led me to write the book. But it took 25 years, 30 years of clinical experience, plus just living. And that's what got me to write this book, and really fits into your message about people being proactive and making changes in their lives and their families and the community and the world they live in. It's all related. Right. We're all connected.
Yeah, it's definitely all related. So will you share how you got to where you are today? How did that, I love the factors, all these factors, because they really are, they're X factors. We've got to identify what those X factors are. With this newest book, let's focus on this shame for right now, because that seems to be really huge that you're finding in the world at large. So how did you even come to know that this was such a major blockage, if you will?
Just, early on in my life, I was always considered too sensitive. and growing up and on a street, we probably had 40 guys my own age growing up, outskirts of Los Angeles, in our street, and we had 40 kids, 40 boys. I knew that this dis-ease I felt wasn't because I wasn't an A student or a Division I athlete or something, but I knew it was something inside that didn't make sense. It took me getting through adolescence and into my 20s. Just it always kind of kept nudging at me. Being on a spiritual path like we all are, to a greater or lesser degree, was always there. Many people call that uneasiness inside of us maybe sin, or in the East, they call it confusion, or in India, they call it Maya, like this confusion of who we are and getting reconnected to ourselves. And that led me through all these factors, like father factor, mother factor, the X factor, and these different hurdles to kind of realize at our core is a gold brick. And on top of that gold brick is mud. And people forget that mud we accumulate as we go. And the key is we just accumulate mud. Yeah, and there's an old story about how this gold Buddha in Tibet, they were being invaded, and this is hundreds of years ago, and they thought, we don't want to lose this. So they shoved the Buddha, with the whole village into this cave and covered it with mud. Anyway, the wars came and went, and it was never discovered. Then a flood came, and it washed the cave away and all the mud, and they realized there's this solid gold Buddha there. Priceless. That is the shame factor. There's a solid piece at our core that different therapies, whether it be didactic therapy or transactional, whatever it is, to get the mud off that gold brick inside of us. And one of the things that gets us there, I've always felt shame and the imposter syndrome. And the New York Times have done a lot, Wall Street Journal have done a lot of articles on what's the imposter syndrome. It's the shame syndrome. Is that on one level, I feel like I'm a phony, I'm fooling my colleagues, and number two, I'm going to be discovered. And the other piece of it is everyone's better than me. So it's just brutal. It's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways.
I love that. And then, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, we all have a part of that inside of us, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. And that has nothing to do. It's just part of this life where it's like we're disconnected from our best self. And in your book and what you're promoting, really, Generation Why Not, is our best self. I always talk about getting the roadblocks out, but that mud on top of our core best self is shame. It can be there different ways. And our job is to, I always say, hose off the mud. Get rid of the mud. That would be critical. That's what we're doing. So that's what that, and over the years, there's an old saying, overnight success takes 15 years. I'm more of the opinion that it's just every day you just keep pushing forward.
Isn't that the truth? I'm going back to this. I just find what you do fascinating. And of course, I have a few degrees in psychology. So I love this topic anyway. What can a parent look for as a child is growing up? What can a parent look for that might have symptoms of a child feeling shame?
That's a great question, because at age 5, Ruth, this is where I sound like Dr. Spock, the famous child psychiatrist. And by the way, his book, next to the Bible, has sold more books than any other book ever printed. Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing. Because what he says, and it's true, at age 5, kids decide I'm either competent or I'm inadequate. That comes from the way our parents speak to us. It's not so much what they say, but it's how they say it. By age 5 or 6, they kind of decide, are they capable or are they inadequate? Now, part of pushing our kids isn't like we push them to become star athletes or actors or scholars. We empower them to take chances. And that's what, as parents between ages 5 and 12 is our primary job, is help expose our kids, whether it be to academically, athletics, opportunities, different groups, different activities. That builds a sense of competency. And that also helps the child not to become the parent's emotional support system. I see that happens a lot. The parent doesn't mean to. I think that's number one. If your child's not part of your emotional support system, your kid's already 50% further down the road.
When we talk about we need to empower the children to become confident.
Confidence is more external. Kids always say to me, my clients, my dad, love these guys, why do I need to do homework? So you learn how to learn that you can do stuff. And they look at me like I have 3 heads. But it has nothing to do with gender. Learning how to learn to do stuff and figure stuff out is magic. Because once you kind of got that sense, boy, the world you just got a key. You can open a lot of closed doors. The imposter syndrome is you may have a key, but you don't own it. You borrow it. Part of competency is, no, I got that key in my pocket. I can open that door. I'm going to open doors. I may have to keep trying, keep knocking. But the antidote to shame is exposure. What is it that we're scared of? Not being smart enough. There's something. Not good enough. Connected enough. Not the right person, right gender, whatever it may be. That's what gets problematic. And shame is all over that. Shame's like mud all over that gold best self. And the other piece of it, Ruth, is people believe that's just me. In quotes, that's just me. That's who I am. No, it's not. That's what you think. I don't want to sound too esoteric, but it really is. I always say there's 4 corners to a building. Could we please look at the other 3 corners of your life? What's the other 3 corners? That is the why not. You got the 1 corner down. Give me 3 more corners. Because that's what a building is, 4 corners. And that means there could be other options, other perspectives. And maybe you're not inadequate. Maybe, you're perfectly imperfect. Side note here, Ruth, when I hear people say, well, I'm a perfectionist, what I hear, I'm into self-loathing.
Oh, wow.
That's what I hear. I don't hear perfection. Self-loathing is perfectionism. And people look at me again with
that's heavy duty.
Yeah, that's pro ball. Because you get away from nobody wants to be self-loathing. Well, and someone says, well, I'm not. Okay. But I have this need to be perfect. Well, you just gaslit yourself. That is a closed circuit. And shame reinforces that. They're going to get whoever they are.
Yeah.
You ask me, what's the key to eradicating shame out of your life? It's self-acceptance. But self-acceptance requires you got to look at all the parts. And there's no blaming in self-acceptance. No finger pointing. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I have a lot of young adults in my practice, Ruth. In their late 20s, early 30s, still blaming their parents. And I look at them like, at what point do you take full responsibility for your life?
Exactly. That's exactly right. I often say, when you take full responsibility, you now are in a position to make changes. But if you continue to blame parents or others, then you're in a passive place, and that is just a miserable place to be because you don't realize that you can pull out of it. It's interesting, Dr. Stephen, because we can't accept others truly until we have self-acceptance.
That is, boy, if people say, what's the best thing I can get from therapy? How about we just go with this one? Let's just go with this one. Let's pick a goal. That's going to work. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's truly powerful. And I truly believe that what you're saying is, in order to attract the life you want, the love relationship you want, the family you want, the career you want, the life you want, the health you want, whatever that may be, it first needs to start. It sounds like eradicating the shame is by accepting who you are. Is that the first place to start?
Boy, that's a tough one. People spend a lifetime avoiding it because that's personal power.
Yeah.
Because I talk about who holds the key to your life, you or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why the 12-step program is so universally accepted. Right. Because it's so solid. Because the first thing is acceptance. And the second is accepting. I need to accept what I've done and make amends, take responsibility. Boy, that's just incredible. And there's no world religion that's in conflict with. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing about that. Whatever your
very true.
Whatever your perspective is, it's here we go. That's what's going on.
Very powerful. So let me ask you, how does what you're talking about stand up with someone that, has been in many relationships and they haven't worked out for whatever reason? What would you suggest to them if they think they're ready to move forward with finding the right person? Because it seems to permeate. It really does seem to permeate around.
I'm going to say something wild here. When I see someone who's had a series of relationships that haven't worked, a number of questions I ask. One, who's in the movie every time? Okay. That's really important. That's important theory. Number two, what are you afraid they might see?
Interesting.
That is where water and oil don't mix. They don't mix. And shame is such a repellent to romantic intimacy, intimate relationships, perfect across the board. People break up, I find, just at that moment when maybe their partner might see what they consider to be this huge defect that's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I go. Let me tell you, and I've never found that not to be a relevant issue. People insulate themselves, will date. I see these women, like, why do you date? You know that where that's going to go. But it keeps their shame safe. It keeps their shame under lock and key.
So how do you explain women that are attracted to narcissists?
A narcissist, you have to be the moon, they have to be the sun. They'll never see you. That's why I find so many competent, capable, loving, brilliant women are attracted to these like yahoos, mean-spirited men, because it keeps them safe. It's brutal. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll never be seen, and it keeps their shame and sense of inadequacy safe under lock and key. Dating someone where it's equitable, now it's a whole new game. Because shame also breeds placating, people-pleasing, servicing a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met a woman who's in a long-term relationship with a narcissist who on some level she believes that she's really seen might be something inadequate.
Well, that shame shows up everywhere.
It is so insidious, one of my favorite words.
Right.
It's insidious.
Right.
It is what oxygen is to the body. Shame needs our ability to keep it secret to survive. Exposing shame, it dies, it's like exposing a virus to the heat. It won't survive.
This is fascinating. It's really powerful because I really never really truly understood the underpinnings of shame.
Yeah.
I really didn't. And I can definitely see this whole connection, you're right, between self-acceptance, where the virus is brought to the heat. On self-acceptance, it melts away, I would imagine. You don't have to necessarily like it, but you don't have to hide from it or think that you're lesser than because of it, correct?
Yep. Absolutely, Ruth. That is what I do. And that's how I always differentiate. Shame is not guilt. Guilt is action related. Like I feel guilty because I shortchanged somebody, or I was really mean to somebody. Because that's guilt. That's action. Shame is intrinsic. You just feel awful. It's like the veins in marble. Like it's
wow.
in the marble. It's in the marble. How do you get out of the marble? Exposure. I have not found a client that I've discussed shame with. Many times they get diagnosed with depression, anxiety, or social issues, when really it's a complex matrix to cover up shame.
Amazing.
It's a very complicated network. Addictions, gambling, womanizing, video gaming, shopping, sex, all that, underneath that is a shame factor. The avoidance of feeling uncomfortable. Very powerful.
I'm floored. Actually, I'm absolutely floored because I just did not, it's interesting. I understood guilt, I thought, and I thought I understood shame. I thought that shame it's about you. It's about you, but I never looked at it from the perspective that you're saying, and that is that self-loathing, or I know that's what you mentioned for perfectionism, but it's also not accepting yourself. And any time you feel you're not good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, short enough, tall enough, whatever that is, I'm extrapolating that you're saying that all stems from shame because we don't accept ourselves.
Yep.
Incredible. That is awesome. 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 So let me ask you, Dr. Steve, what is one or two last gems, incredible comments that you'd like to share with our listeners?
2 points. One, that sense, that dis-ease inside of you, that sense of impending doom. That's not anxiety. That's shame.
Wow.
Impending doom is not anxiety. That is shame. And it gets misdiagnosed more than it gets diagnosed. And number 2, ask your question, do I feel competent or do I feel inadequate? And you can choose either way.
For example, I would say that I feel very competent in almost all areas, but there would be 1 or 2 areas that I would say that I do feel inadequate. But the majority, I feel competent. I get the opportunity then to check those areas out because those are the areas that right now I'm not feeling fulfilled in.
Right. Yep. That's where it is, Ruth. I'm not interested in your strength. I'm interested in where the shame factor is active.
Yes, exactly. So, Dr. Stephan, I know people are going to want to connect with you. And you do phone interviews, so people all
Absolutely, all the time.
Okay, Oliver can work with you. So how do people get in touch with you?
My Instagram account, I can't believe I'm saying that, Instagram, is Dr. Steve. I know, I can't believe I'm saying that. Yeah, it's true. Dr. Steve Poulter, Poulter, or they can Google the shame factor and find me. I'm in Los Angeles, California, and my website is Stephan, Stephan, Poulter, Poulter.com, and they can find me there.
Or they can just go to Amazon, get the book, and I'm sure that all that information's in there as well.
Yep.
Today, I'm going to go back to that, my book that I have on the shame factor. I'm rereading that.
Excellent. We'd love to hear that.
That was fantastic. Dr. Steve,
thank you.
Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much. And we will definitely get you back on. This is just fascinating, and you are fascinating. And you know what I love? I just love how you're able to share these incredibly, I'm going to say, hard to hear things about ourselves, but you say it in such a way that is so non-judgmental. And so, that's just the way it is. And this is what,
it really is.
It's just, it's like it's not, it just is. You don't have to know any more than that. It just is. You don't have to go any more down the rabbit hole other than that's what exists. It's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful. Wonderful.
My pleasure. You're the best. Thank you.
I don't even know where to start on highlights here. And there's so many. So I'm just going to pick out a few, and not that they're the biggest or the most important, but there's so many.
You're the best host I've ever had. I've been doing this so much, I can't even believe it.
Thank you, Dr. Steve. I appreciate it. All right, thanks so much. Thanks. I appreciate that. I love it. When Dr. Steve was talking about this, just kind of do a couple of highlights here before we end. I just really like the fact, you see that distinction with that, as Dr. Steve said, that permeation, that insidious piece of shame that tends to undermine everything. And it's almost as though that's where you start first, right there. Because you asked the question, where do you feel competent or inadequate? I just love that. And then you go from there. If you're feeling that imposter syndrome, it's really part of the shame factor. And this is a perfect time. You know, what's so great is that basically it's a treasure in so many ways if your life is not working the way you want it to. And why is it a treasure? I find it's a treasure because that is feedback for you that something's not working. I don't have an area. There's an area in my life or 3 areas in my life that are not feeling as fulfilled as I would like. Well, that's a treasure because that's feedback to you saying, okay, it's not a bad thing. It just is, this is a place where we're going to start, and I'm going to get help and some guidance, and we're going to investigate. I'm going to be a personal investigator, and I'm going to get someone like Dr. Steve to help me investigate what's going on so I can understand it. I can clean it up. I can wash the mud off and then allow the gold Buddha to appear. Thanks again, everybody. Until next time, remember, ideas are only as good as their implementation. And until next time, be brilliant and bold.
Thank you for joining Generation Why Not. We look forward to receiving any questions you may have, as Ruth will be answering them on this podcast. Follow Ruth.Klein on Instagram or email rklein@ruthklein.com. Until next time, a short reminder that success is driven by attitude, not age.